So in this video, I'm going to tell you how to lower a Durango the proper way. I'm going to talk about all the things you need to buy, the part numbers, what you need to do in order to get this thing lowered properly. Now, first of all, let's take a look at how low we got. We used the Eibach Pro Kit, and as you can see with the little fist test, we're sitting pretty low. The rear is always going to be a little higher, but we can't stick our fist in there either way. Nice and low, just how we like it. So the very first thing, I'm talking about the very first thing you need to do if you want to lower your Durango is find out if your Durango has low leveling shocks. Now, there's several ways of finding out. You can take it to a mechanic shop and ask them to check out your vehicle, check out the rear shocks, and see if they're low leveling shocks. And usually, if you have the tow package, more than likely you have the low leveling shocks. Because the tow package with the low leveling shocks, those LL shocks, is really going to compensate the towing weight capacity. They can handle much more of a load than regular Mopar shocks. So that is the very first thing you need to do is find out if your Durango has low leveling shocks or not. And some people, they'll find out, they'll put their springs on and their vehicle has low leveling shocks, and they'll wonder why their vehicle is not lowering in the rear. Well, that's because the low leveling shocks is going to want to try to keep leveling those springs out. And so that's why you need to remove them. You need to put regular shocks on your Durango before you put on your lowering springs. Now, if you want more information on the load leveling shocks, I have a video on that. A load leveling shocks video is showing you exactly what they look like. They're going to be a lot bulkier. The upper shock mount is a lot bulkier than a normal regular Mopar shock per se. Now, another question that comes to mind is, well, what kind of a shocks do I swap the low leveling ones out with? Well, me personally, I went with the Mopar shocks. Part number will be in the description. The reason why I went with the Mopar shocks is because I wanted original parts, because I didn't want to run into any issues. I wanted this thing to fit on, and I didn't want no problems. And I didn't have any problems because I went with the Mopar shocks. As well as, let's say down the line, if the Mopar shock goes bad, you may still be under warranty if your vehicle has a warranty. If you get the Mopar shocks, your warranty still may be covered for those shocks. Now, on the Dodge forums, you will see that people put on different type of shocks. Let's say like Bilstein or whatever, Monroe, and they have found that when they put their lowering springs on, that they just don't fit properly. Maybe the upper shock mount isn't fitting right, and so they have to go get a spacer or some kind of a makeshift part just to get the shocks to fit in there properly so that their springs can fit on. And they ran into all kind of issues. You can read up on that on the Dodge forums. And so that is the main reason why I went with the Mopar shocks, because, when you go with original parts, you're guaranteed fitment. You're guaranteed fitment. Whereas, let's say you put some Monroe shocks on this, they may fit, but sometimes they may not fit 100%. So that's why I went with the Mopar shocks for proper fitment, and boy, do they fit. Another thing to mention is with the Mopar shocks that I bought for this vehicle, when you order it, If you order online, let's say if you order from Amazon or eBay, and it's the same exact part number, when that comes in, it may not come with the nuts and bolts that you need that comes with it, that's supposed to come with the shock, or it may not come with the upper shock mount, or it may not come with the bump stop. So keep that in mind. You want to make sure you have a full shock assembly. And so I went to the dealer. And even at the dealer, you couldn't order the whole assembly. So you had to order each part individually from the dealer. So in other words, they ordered the shock, then we had to put an order in for the nuts and bolts, then we had to order the bump stop, then the upper shock mount, and so forth. The upper shock mount plate. And so they all came in, and then that's when I actually installed them myself. They were very simple to install. Saved me some money that was needed, so I just installed them myself. So it's probably best to just go to a dealer, order the shock, order all the parts you need if you're going to use the Mopar shocks. Now, you only need to swap out the rear shocks. The front shocks are fine. The front shocks do not have load leveling shocks. It's only for the rear. So once you swap out your rear shocks, next thing you want to do is get your springs. Now you can use a variety of springs. There's Mopar springs, there's Eibach springs, and they have even different kinds of Eibach springs. They have Sport, Street. The one I have is the Pro Kit. And so there's differences. There's height differences and performance differences in each. With the Eibach Pro Kit that I got for this, it's rated for a 0.7 drop in the front, which it dropped more than that. It probably dropped at least an inch and a quarter. And it's rated for 1.7 in the rear. And in the rear, it definitely dropped much more than that, probably closer to 2 inches. And I really like the way it looked. So I will link the part number for the Eibach Pro Kit in the description. Another thing to keep in mind is I know for sure that the Mopar shocks and the Pro Kit that I used on this definitely fits for 18 to 20 Durango RT. I really can't speak on like from a 15, 16, 17, as far as fitment for the shocks and the Pro Kit. I really can't guarantee, but I do know for a certainty the 18 through 20 model Durango RTs, I think the parts that I have will definitely fit because it has the same exact body style. And also I know the 15s and 16s and 17s have a similar body style, but you know, make sure you do your research before you get the parts used that I use for my Durango. All in all, I'm very, very satisfied with this modification. This was probably one of the best modifications I've done that I'm more satisfied with. As far as performance, it's like night and day. The handling, the ride quality, the comfort, and also the Eibach Pro Kit comes with bump stops. They're shorter bump stops, which would get you a little bit lower. The normal bump stops are probably about this big. The Eibach Pro Kit bump stops are probably around this big, and they're a little softer, so it gives you a more comfortable ride. And so another question that comes to mind is, do you need to get any additional parts, any camber kits, any links added on with this modification? You absolutely don't need any kind of a kit. You don't need any camber kit. You're definitely not going low enough to where you need a camber kit. The camber, you're not going to get crazy camber with this modification. You're only dropping a couple inches, so the camber is not going to be to the point where you need a camber kit or any kind of extra links and stuff like that. Only other thing you will need once you swap out your shocks for regular ones, once you install your Eibach Pro Kit, the only other thing you'll need to get is an alignment, a wheel alignment. It's basically so that your tires can wear evenly. Anytime you're doing any modifications to the suspension, you definitely want to get a wheel alignment. That's the best way to go. It's not an absolute must, but I definitely spent the extra money for the alignment just to ensure that my tires wear evenly and things of that nature. So keep that in mind. You don't need to add on any extra camber kits or links or anything like that. Just swap out your shocks, get your Eibach Pro Kit, have that installed, and after you have your Eibach Pro Kit installed, they may drive it for about 10 or 20 miles and then do the wheel alignment. Now here's a diagram of the entire shock assembly and all the parts needed. Number 20 is the large bolt that goes through the bottom of the shock. Number 21 is the nut that ties to that bolt. Number 15 is the shock itself. Number 19 is the dust boot that goes around the shock. Number 29 is the bump stop. Number 16 are the two bolts that goes through the upper mounting bracket. Number 17 is the upper mounting bracket. Number 18 is the backing plate that sits on top of the upper mounting bracket. And number 22 is the nut that ties the whole assembly together. Now you can take a screenshot of this, take it to the dealer, and explain to them that these are all the parts that you want to order. And when they come in, you can simply have them install it. So if you're looking to lower your Durango, all the information is in this video. I will put the part numbers in the description below. If you have any questions, drop a comment below. But man, look at how it's sitting. And I really like the way it's sitting. I didn't want to go too low because I definitely didn't want to run into clearance issues. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and definitely make sure you subscribe to the channel. Alex's RT Life. I will see you guys in the next video.